everyone, how are you? You've really stayed inside with Mel and D. Sorry for the technical issues. Today we have a special guest, Emily Rhoads. She's our in-house loan coordinator and she's going to share insights on FHA loans. So feel free to ask questions in this live video or
also if you are watching the replay, feel free to still drop your questions at that time. Daria and I will be watching the comments after the videos to make sure we answer all your questions, but just to make sure we aren't missing any, because if any of them come up, while we're live, we'll of course answer them verbally, but just to make sure we don't miss you if you ask the questions after the fact, just drop a little hashtag replay in there just so we know you've watched the replay and that's when you're asking your questions. But like I said, Daria and I will make sure to watch out for those and get your questions answered.
Yes. All right, so let's get started. Emily, share our FHA insights and what's good and what's bad about that.
Yes, ma'am. So just to reiterate, guys, my name is Emily Rhoads. I am a loan originator with VanDyke Mortgage, and I am so honored to work with the VanDyke Group. And today we're going to talk about the FHA loan, which you guys have probably heard about that before. It is one of the most common ones. And the FHA loan is the Federal Housing Administration loan. Now, this loan was created as a means of helping out low to moderate income families, or not even just families, but all borrowers, and anyone who maybe might have a little bit of credit issues. If you don't have that perfect 800, or 700 even score, the FHA loan is much more forgiving and flexible on a lot of the requirements, so we're able to help out more borrowers and more families. But a few of the things that are really important to know about the FHA loan is one of the things that is huge for people is that it requires a lower down payment. Now, back in the day, everyone used to say you need to put 20% down on a home, and nowadays it still is very valuable simply because you avoid certain things such as mortgage insurance and other things like that. But nowadays it's really not quite as common. Usually you're seeing somewhere around the 5% mark or below. With the FHA loan, it's going to be 3.5% down payment you're going to be required to have. Now again, that's one of those things, if you're reading this and you're trying to do the math like, oh my gosh, 3.5%, that sounds scary. Don't worry, reach out to me. There are ways we're able to help you with down payment assistance through the county or through the state, so no worries, but just so you know, it is a 3.5% down payment. One of the other great things about it, as I mentioned, it is going to have more flexible credit requirements. So here at VanDyke Mortgage, we actually only require a 580 credit score to do an FHA loan, so that's really nice. It's pretty forgiving. So, allowed to help more people out there. So we've got that lower credit.
So is it a standard 580? Is that what it goes at? Or?
So for us, it's a standard 580. Other lenders may have other requirements, maybe a little higher requirements. So all of these different loan products, the government's going to set up these guidelines that we must follow when we're doing loans. Now, the loan origination company is able to do what's called an overlay, where they say, okay, well, the feds say we are doing this, but here at such and such a company, we require this. And they may put a little bit more stricter guidelines on it just because it's what they want to do internally, and that's their prerogative. Absolutely. Here at VanDyke, we don't have any lender overlays, so, what the feds say, that goes with us. So we're able to help out a lot more families, a lot more, individuals, and just all kinds of borrowers here. So thank you for asking that. Sure. That's a really great question, because just because you were told by another lender, it said, hey, we can't take you below 620, don't worry, because VanDyke Mortgage, we can help you out. One of the other benefits as well for the FHA loan is it does have a higher debt to income ratio allowed. Now that's one of those things you may have heard, tossed around a little bit in conversation. Maybe you've done some Googling, some due diligence, looking into, what does this whole loan program situation look like? So debt to income ratio, just this, the simplest way that I can boil it down for you is you've got your monthly income and you've got your monthly obligations, your monthly debt, such as your car payment, your credit cards, things of that nature. We just basically create a ratio out of that. And the FHA loan allows for you guys as borrowers to have a higher amount of monthly debt in comparison to your income. So that's another really nice benefit. Other programs such as a conventional loan, they only allow up to 50%, whereas FHA, of course, based on certain circumstances, and no loan is the same, but we can allow up to 55% debt to income ratio. So that just allows you guys to have more purchasing power, a bigger house, a nicer house, maybe in a little bit better neighborhood, closer to work, closer to schools, whatever the case may be. It might allow you guys to have that flexibility. And that's, again, one of those things that I want to kind of bounce back on here is there are other loan companies out there that do have overlays that say, hey, we won't go above 50%. So again, that's one of those situations that if you've been told by another lender that unfortunately you don't meet their guidelines, please feel free to give us a chance, because there's a good chance we're able to get you in that home. And then the last thing I want to point out, which is another huge one for borrowers, is with regards to closing costs. Now, Daria knows that closing costs can typically be one of those things that's a little bit scary to borrowers, especially first-time buyers. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Especially because they don't have cash stack up,
right,
and you need to spend maybe like $6,000 to $7,000 in closing costs, and that's what Emma's going to talk about, the seller's concessions.
Absolutely. So America nowadays, and this is not to sound bad, but as a whole, America is kind of what's called like a cash poor society. We don't just have thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Kaylee, thank you so much for that question. I'm going to answer that one in just a second. I want to make sure I acknowledged it. But in terms of the closing costs, we don't really just have thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars just in our bank accounts, That's not really the standard in America anymore. So when it comes to things like closing costs, $7,000 to $8,000 in closing costs, of course, that's going to depend on your property, but that can make it or break it for some people. But don't let that scare you, because Daria is an expert at negotiations. Her team, they're phenomenal, and they can negotiate per FHA guidelines up to 6% of what's called seller concessions. So that means that the sellers are able to contribute
to your closing costs for the buyers. That way it doesn't go out of your pocket directly, and you spend all the money on your first home, especially if you're first time buyer or you're not first time buyer. You always want to save that cash for yourself.
Absolutely.
You know, especially when you buy a new home. So, and that way we can ask up to 6% from the seller to contribute to your closing costs, which is amazing.
Exactly. Now, Kaylee, going back to your question regarding the difference between the FHA and a conventional loan, is FHA better? So I'll answer that second part of the question first. Is FHA better? It could be, but it also could not be. It really depends on your particular file. Now, everyone is going to be different. What works best for Daria may not be what works best for me. It's one of those things where I'm going to have to take your application, take a look at your file, and see what's more beneficial to you. So that's one of those things we'll have to have that conversation one-on-one. FHA is typically better for a lot of people, I will say that, but in terms of black and white, is it better, is it worse, it's hard to say. The difference between FHA and conventional, there are a lot of differences with that. So one of the big things with conventional, you're typically having to put down 5% of a down payment for your home purchase, as opposed to FHA, which is 3.5%. Conventional, it's a little bit different credit requirements, and also it doesn't allow as much of a monthly debt obligation. Your debt to income ratio is going to be a little bit different, so conventional doesn't allow as much. Now, there are perks with conventional in terms of your mortgage insurance and things of that nature. There are so many differences, and I don't want to throw out a whole lot of that right now, simply because, to someone who doesn't work in this industry, that may confuse you. But, there's a lot of differences, but truly for the vast majority of first-time home buyers, you're going to see most success in FHA. But again, it's one of those things, when I take your application, I'll look into all factors, the entire file, see how it goes, and we'll make sure to explain the differences to you and how one program might affect you differently versus the other.
Yeah, like I can say from the experience that I see, no case is the same. And all people are different, and the situations are different because their lives are different. So it's always better if you have any personal questions on your specific situation, give Emily a call, give me a call, and we can talk better and discuss it particularly to your specific case.
Absolutely. And with that, if you guys have any questions that you'd like to ask me, my cell phone number is 941-779-5494. Please feel free to call, or if you're busy or maybe just don't feel comfortable hopping on the phone and having a conversation, please feel free to text. I text with my customers all the time, so happy to answer you however you feel most comfortable reaching out to me.
Yeah, and feel free to ask any questions in the comments after this video, during this video. It was nice to have you, Emily, here.
Thank you very much,
Thank you for sharing all the insights.
Absolutely.
I hope it was helpful for our viewers, and we'll see you next week with a new topic.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.